Welcome back to Chat Shit. That's round 17 in the books for the 2025 season. We saw this round was really centred around the top 9 teams all playing against the bottom 9 teams. We've seen that gap grow and grow over the course of this season. And Aiden, why don't you tell us about how that went, that matchup?
Well, the average amount of points in victory for the teams that won was 42 points, or just over 42 points. And it's not exactly something you want to see, especially as a neutral fan watching other games, especially as a Swans fan with that minor chance to make the top 8. You need these teams to start dropping points. And when you have a round like this, any upset that you can possibly get is going to be a benefit to the Swans. And we just didn't see that at all this week.
Yeah, and we know that Swans are the one team that's going to charge at that top 9. And then obviously, even if Swans don't make a charge, one of those teams has to miss finals. But the interesting thing that we were noticing looking at the fixtures is the bottom teams haven't really been playing against each other much recently, and the top teams haven't been playing against each other much. And so when that happens from next round onwards, we're going to see a lot of those top teams have to lose matches because they're playing against each other. So if there are a couple of teams that drop out of form, maybe a Swans or a Port Adelaide could make a charge, but otherwise the top 9 looks pretty cemented.
We're then likely to have a lot of finals-type matches with these teams fighting for top 4, top 8, because one of them is going to miss out, or maybe even 2 of them, depending on if the Swans can charge towards the end. It's going to be really interesting. Let's jump into the top 5 players of the round.
Absolutely pissing down here at the top. Jesus! Usain Bolt wouldn't get him now. The legend becomes immortal.
My number 5 player of the round was Big Finn Callaghan. He's just been playing better and better throughout this year. Obviously burst onto the scene last season, but this year it's been a different level. Has unfortunately missed some games through injuries, but this week was the pinnacle of what we've seen. Just tore apart West Coast. I saw at one point they tried to pay some attention to him, but it didn't do anything. He's just an absolute bull through the midfield. Very, very slick. Led the game in disposals and score involvements and kicked a goal.
I like it. I didn't have him. There was a lot of competition for the top 5 this week. I had a guy who was... Michael Voss said before the game that Nick Davis is going to have some runners with him all day. It was going to be George Hewitt for most of the game. We saw that for most of the game. But then he went on and had a goal to 36, 13 score involvements with a goal assist. That is quite an impressive performance, especially when you talked about getting tagged the entire game if a run with player.
And when the opposition team is making sure the media knows and that Collingwood knows in the midweek, there will be a man standing with him, following him at every stoppage, and he still was by far best on ground.
Yeah, he's going to walk away with 3 Brownlow votes. A little bit embarrassing for Carlton.
Yeah. And number 4, I've got Max Hall. And it's amazing to see a guy who's not considered as an A grader or star pedigree have a superstar level performance. He's a guy who, with this performance, instantly shoots up into rising star contention, which I think he's eligible for. And 3 goals, 27, going at 70%, with 9 score involvements. There were a few players at St Kilda that really did all they could against Hawthorn, but we saw their bottom 6 sort of get exposed against a very deep Hawthorn side, and Hall can absolutely hold his head up high. That was a superstar performance.
Well, it'll be interesting what he's going to look like in a few years' time. He doesn't have too many games in him. We're going to discuss that a little bit later about every team's best player in 5 years' time, or who we think that's going to be. I didn't have him just because I've got another player from his team that you probably have, and I just didn't want to have 2 players from the same team, especially in a losing side. Although his was he rated the second best player this round?
Yeah, third.
That's something crazy. Yeah, third. In my 4th place, I had Isaac Rankin. So probably should have kicked his 6th goal towards the end, which would have been a career high for him. Didn't play a lot of midfield time today. Was sent towards the forward line. Melbourne do have a history of struggling dealing with smaller forwards defensively, and he really took advantage of that. 5 goals, dominant in the game, kicked 3 of Adelaide's first 4 goals or something crazy. And in a pretty close game, to kick 5 goals and get your team over the line, I think deserved to be top 5.
Absolutely. At number 3, I've got a guy who always seems to tear apart the Swans, even when he's not in good form. He tears apart the Swans. Didn't play against the Swans this week, but he kicked 5 and had 26 disposals against Port Adelaide. It's Zach Bailey. He is obviously a really exciting player, as a player that will start in the forward line and then come to stoppage and burst out of it and link up the midfield and the forward line. And did that yesterday against Port Adelaide, and they absolutely needed to. This was not an easy win for Brisbane. Port Adelaide were fighting until the very end, but Zach Bailey was absolutely the difference maker, was just everywhere and took all his chances, a goal assist as well.
I had Zach Bailey as well at number 3. early doors, maybe like first 5 to 10 rounds of the season, was easily talked about a guy that could be All-Australian on the wing, All-Australian potentially as a small forward. But he sort of tailed off the last sort of five weeks heading into the bye. But he found some serious form, probably his potentially career best game that he's had, especially rating-wise from champion data. But yeah, he was my number 3.
Yeah, my number 2 was Tom Liberatore. You have him at number 1 or 2 as well?
2.
Yeah, so an absolutely beastly performance in his 250th. He was just the best on ground, had his highest rated performance ever by champion data. You can rattle off the stats: 2 goals, 27, leading the game in contested possessions, score involvements, and tackles. So he was prime Libba. They've been trying him in a couple different positions in the half-back line, spending a lot more time sitting forward. But I think that it's very clear that if there's going to be a 3 or 4 inside mids that they stick to consistently, Libba has to be one of them.
Well, there's nothing else I can really add to that, so I'll go straight. He was my number 2. My number 1 was Wangani Milera, who I assume is your number 1.
I don't have him in there at all.
Yes, you don't.
I just had to miss out, but he was awesome.
Well, he did everything that you expected him, besides kicking the goals. Obviously, he had the 3 behinds, but 43 touches, a goal assist, 67%. And that's pretty high considering the kicks that he usually takes on. But the speed at which he carries the ball is probably level and up there with Nick Blakey in the competition when they've got it. The ability for them to find space, or him to find space and find those small targets.
Yeah, the creativity.
He's a guy you really want. He's got like Blakey's speed and Goulden's kicking. He's a ridiculous talent, still really, really young, and he's putting up performance after performance now.
Yeah, he was absolutely awesome. Another one of those St Kilda players that did all he could. Hawthorn were just a bit better. I don't have your number 1 in my list at all, and you don't have my number 1 in your list at all.
He wasn't actually number 1.
No.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
My number 1 is Zach Merritt, who in a losing side was simply ridiculous. This is not the first time this season and not the second time this season that Zach Merritt has been clearly best on ground in a performance where Essendon have lost by a big margin. He just has absolutely no help. There were actually a couple of other young midfielders at Essendon who can hold their heads up high after that performance, Sam Durham and Jai Caldwell, namely. But this Essendon, this forward line is a complete shambles at the moment. You've sort of got a midfield that's trying to keep up with the elite midfields, and then you've got a forward line that's in complete rebuild mode. No one with more than 13 goals at this stage of the season is a pretty crazy stat, to be honest. But Zach Merritt was... I don't really know how to put it into words. He was just insanely clean. 12 clearances, 8 inside 50s, had 40 touches when Gold Coast were dominating possession. And he led the game in score involvements despite Essendon hardly being able to score it.
It's probably just unfortunate his lack of quality around him that he can't even make a charge at a sort of Brownlow when you're on a losing team so often.
Also, he's a player that I would absolutely love to see play in preliminary finals, grand finals, and
he screams finals type player.
Absolutely. He just stands up. He's the player that when everyone's tired in the fourth quarter, he's going to sprint and make a chase down tackle or make the extra run to be the spare man in the forward line. He's a finals type player, but unfortunately Essendon have not provided him with surroundings to have that opportunity. I pray he gets it in the future.
Yeah, we're going to move into a new segment for today, which is your team's best player in 5 years' time.
I'm going to do the top 9 on the ladder. Dos is going to do the bottom 9 on the ladder, and we'll go top to bottom. Starting with Collingwood. It's pretty obvious. We're not going to get too funky here. Yeah. Nick Dacos is 22 years old right now. He'll be 27 in 5 years. Without any injuries, he's the best player at Collingwood in 5 years' time. And I will add that this is just players on their current list. We're not trying to guess who's going to be where in 5 years. For Brisbane, I had a couple of options, but I've gone with Will Ashcroft. He's got a Norm Smith medal. He's 21 years old. He's got all of the makings of a player that's just in the exact right environment to grow and blossom into a superstar. Adelaide, I've got Riley Thilthorpe. He's 22. Adelaide have some real top-end stars right now in Jordan Dawson and Isaac Rankin, but Riley Thilthorpe is coming through as one of the very most talented key forwards in the comp, and he's only 22 years old. He's only going to improve and get stronger. So I've got him there. For Geelong, it's a really tough one. Holmes and Smith are both dominant, and they're both 22 and 24 years old respectively. I've gone with Max Holmes. I think that his body is more sustainable. We've seen him basically not miss more than 1 or 2 games since he debuted, or he's not had major injuries, whereas Bailey Smith is a complete mega talent, runs as hard as anyone in the league through the midfield, and just is an absolute bull. But you're worried that he can maintain that by the time he's 29. So I've gone with Max Holmes. Hawthorn. I really wanted to pick Josh Weddle here, but I've gone with Will Day, who's 24. Similar lines to Bailey Smith, that he has suffered some really bad injury blows, but you really hope that Will Day can get healthy and stay healthy, and he should be a beast in 5 years. For the Bulldogs, it's Sam Darcy. No other words need to be said. Gold Coast, Noah Anderson, the youngest captain in the competition, at 24 years old right now. GWS, I've got Finn Callahan. I was saying to Aiden this weekend, I reckon the biggest 4 stars in the league in 5 years' time, or in maybe 2-3 years' time even, Sam Darcy, Nick Dacos, Luke Jackson, and Finn Callahan. Finn Callahan is the real deal, and he's probably GWS's best player with Sam Taylor injured. At Fremantle, I've got Luke Jackson, who we've just mentioned. There's never been a ruckman like him. I have never seen a ruckman in a finals team being played as a rover. He was just about the best rover on field today against the Swans, the way he was just so clean. Snagged a goal as a rover, and then also snagged a goal taking a big contested clunk. So this is the type of player you're working with, who can also dominate ruck battles. No player like him. He'll be incredible at 28.
I like it. I'll go straight into mine. So I started with the Swans. There were a few options here. I decided to go with Errol Goulden.
Good.
Currently 22, will obviously be 27 in 5 years' time. A big part of what I see is his leadership on the field, and they talk about it in a lot of the shows where you can see him directing play, telling people where to stand at every single stoppage. You could see when he was injured at the start of the season when he didn't play the first 10 to 12 games, on the sidelines every single time, screaming from the bench.
Yeah.
And he backs it up. I mean, this is him coming off 12 weeks of no footy. And he's almost been best on ground a couple of weeks in a row now.
Surely a future captain.
100% he's going to be a future captain. He's probably already been talked about as probably putting him in that spot next year or the year after.
Yeah.
Loves the Swans. He ain't going anywhere. He's only going to get better. Port Adelaide, again, there are a few options here. I decided to go with Zach Butters, who's going to be 29, who's going to be, again, prime age, still bustling through stoppage. You feel like his game's going to stack up still in 5 years' time, wherever he is playing his footy. We decided to not factor in any transfer news or where players might be playing in 5 years. It's just where they are now, and assuming they're going to be there in 5 years' time. I think Zach Butters would be the best player there. Carlton, I found Carlton quite tough, because you can go with someone like Wiedering, who's going to be 32, but I decided to go with Jagger Smith.
Because everyone who's currently playing has no hope.
I think that
he hasn't played a game.
They're putting a lot of pressure on him, and the whole of Carlton's bit. When Carlton lose, they're saying just wait for this guy next year, and obviously next year is going to be technically a first-year player. A lot of pressure. I know he's just coming off an ACL, huge injury, but I didn't know who else to pick at Carlton, and in 5 years' time, if he gets it going and if he lives up to the potential that they talk about him to have, I think he'll be the best player. Moving into the next one, Essendon. For me, I went Nate Caddy.
Surely Zach Merritt. He just carries on till he's 40.
I thought about Zach Merritt, and he has talked about actually playing until he's 40. He just wants to keep playing until he can't play anymore. But what Caddy is doing at 19, you don't see a lot of tall forwards doing. Obviously, we're seeing Darcy, who's a revelation that we haven't seen in the league for quite a while. But
Caddy's great.
Caddy, he's kicking goals. Only 19. As he grows into his body more and more, when he's 24 years old, he's only going to be even better. Yeah. Moving it to Melbourne. This one was also quite interesting. I was thinking about Cosy Pickett, but I actually went Harvey Langford. For this one, he's going to be 23 years old. He's already quite a big body.
Yeah,
and I think at 18, and soon he's gonna make that move into the middle whenever they decide to start. He's getting a few centre bounces now, but he's going to be a full-time mid at some point. That's exactly where he played in his youth. He's got a big body. He's got like a Cripps type body. Tall, he can take a contested mark, and he's got the quality now at 18. I can't even imagine what he's going to be like at 23 years old. St Kilda, this was easy for me. It was Nasai Wanganeen-Malira at 27. Obviously, it doesn't matter where he's going to be playing his footy. Quality now at 27. He's still going to have his speed. He's going to have better decision making. More games in the legs. You'd hope he'd have played finals by then. And just to throw it in, there's a very good chance he's not playing at St Kilda in the very, very near future. North Melbourne, a lot of young talent, not showing a lot of it just yet. I've gone with Harry Sheezel, who'll be 25. When they find his position and actually lock it down, we discussed a little bit earlier, potentially the half-back line might just be his best position, just being able to control the game with it all in front of him. Instead of playing at the half-forward line, he seems to not have as much impact. Might Maybe it's in the centre bounce. Maybe it's moving through the middle. Hasn't seemed to work so far. But I think once they nail down his position in 5 years' time, he's probably going to be a future captain of the team. The way he talks about North on media, and the way he talks about himself, and how he respects the game, and how he recovers from the game. But yeah, 25 years old, he'll be quality. Richmond, again, that wasn't too easy to pick. I went Sam Lawler. Obviously showed a lot when he debuted this year. Missed quite a bit of footy, but he's got the build and the body type in the game so far that's going to... he'll be quite a good player in 5 years' time. West Coast, also tough. I went Harley Reid. You might disagree. We both believe he's quite an overrated player, but he still has the quality. Only 20 years old. He'll be 25. Can only go up from here.
Yeah, I think it can't only go up from here.
You reckon?
In the words of Mick, it can't go. It can't keep going like this, can it? It can.
Yeah, it can.
No, I really hope Harley Reid flourishes and reaches his potential.
Well, chances are he's going to be in Melbourne, at some team in Melbourne in the time zone.
So he certainly doesn't seem settled. He's leading the league in clangers and free kicks against without sort of being near that top upper echelon in terms of actual positive impact.
When he gets a bit more quality around him. When he doesn't feel like maybe he has to do more than what he actually is capable of doing.
Yeah, I guess we saw something pretty similar with Jason Horne-Francis at North Melbourne. Yeah. When he wasn't settled, when he wasn't happy with the situation, we saw him nowhere near his potential, but now, as soon as he's come to Port, he's grown and grown. So, hopefully we see the same for Harley Reid.
But that was a really tough segment, choices for us to make in that segment. Let us know what you think. I know we could have gone a few directions and a lot of different selections. We're going to move into the next segment in hits and misses.
My hit and miss go together because they were from the same game. My hit is Collingwood, because I think we've mentioned them in passing a lot and how much further they are above the rest of the league, above second place even. But on the flip side of that, my miss is Carlton, who we've mentioned a couple of times today. Starting off with Collingwood, in a league that has so much quality, so many teams that are incredibly difficult to beat, especially in their home grounds, Collingwood seems pretty impossible to beat at the moment. Suffered a big defeat in round 0, and since then have only had one loss. So they seem
impenetrable.
They seem impenetrable. It's really hard to see them losing when it comes down to finals. There are some scary teams going around, but no more scary than Collingwood, and I think that there's quite a large margin. Just the experience and quality that they have all around the ground, and something about whatever Craig McRae is doing and his coaching team is getting the best out of these players at 30 plus years old. When they're fully fit, almost their entire team is 28 plus and mostly 30 plus, and yet they're all playing career best footy, it seems. Guys like Steele Sidebottom, who are legends of the footy club. Guys like Jeremy Howe, Jamie Elliott, who you could have easily assumed at the start of this year were well beyond their best years, are finding career best footy. It's incredible to see. Clearly, they're all just motivating each other, and there's something about the culture that every team can be learning from. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Hopefully, a doco comes out about this season and we can learn more. But it's amazing what they're doing at the moment. And on the flip side of that, for Carlton to not show up in a game of this magnitude when they've been unbelievably disappointing to their fans, let's just keep it to that. To their fans, they've been so disappointing, especially in the last 3 weeks. And to not step up against your biggest rival when your fans need to see something from you, and the coach needs to see something from you, your teammates need to see something from you. In the words of Michael Voss speaking to the leadership, Wiedering and Cripps, he said, effing deplorable. The effort was effing deplorable. He's caught the lip syncers caught him on that one. But I agree, Vossi. But I think he'd also be a bit concerned that his job's in jeopardy. Obviously, a lot of the media is talking about it. You never want to be calling for someone to lose their job. But Voss is going to have to do quite a lot to, I think, convince the Carlton board that he deserves to stay.
I think one of the craziest things with Collingwood is Dan Houston hasn't actually done that much. So they have the same team as they did last year.
Dan Houston, All-Australian, both of the last 2 seasons.
Oh, no, 100%. But he's not having a massive impact on this Collingwood team. And we thought that they were putting all their eggs in one basket, that they weren't actually going to be able to push towards even the top 8, let alone first place by a comfortable margin, because they haven't changed a whole lot. Same coach, exact same team, a year older for such an old team. But to be doing what they're doing, it does change people's minds about what age players can play in the game. Can players play a couple more years? Is experience more important?
Yeah.
But I'll go straight into my hit. So when last at this stage of the season did we have 8 teams within 6 points, all jostling for top 4 positions? And you can't really have a crack at picking who will finish inside that top 8.
Who finishes second or ninth.
100%. Yeah. We usually had a much bigger gap between maybe the top 5 and the rest, where then 6th, 12th places fighting for top 8, and then there's 5 teams fighting for the top 4. But it's anyone's game. Besides Collingwood, every other spot is open. Yeah. And you could if Brisbane go on a really bad run now, crazy putters in second place, they could miss the 8.
Yeah.
So we're in a really fun stage of the season. It screams Premier League final day stuff for the top 8 and the top 4. And I myself, as most likely a neutral, depending on how the Swans season turns out, will be glued to the screen.
Yeah, the fact that it's end of round 17 and you look at any of these teams, Hawthorn, Bulldogs, Gold Coast, you tell me, they finish second and get a home final, I go, yep, I believe you. And if you tell me they're going to finish 9th and, just miss out on the 8, I believe you just as easily. So it's never going to be easy for these teams. They're going to have to keep winning to have any security, and it's going to be fascinating to watch. So as we've been talking about over the last couple of days, so many pretty much finals matches, especially as we head into the later rounds.
Yeah, I got straight into my miss. I'm a bit worried for North Melbourne. Now, we wanted to see a little bit more development this year. We wanted to see it last year. We didn't see it last year. We thought we might see it this year. We thought we might see it.
We were confident we'd see it.
We were confident to see it this year, and especially they keep kicking on. Except, they're conceding just over 100 points, which isn't going to win you games. And when you just look at their defensive line, the key position players. I mean, Charlie Coleman had a great start to the season. It's sort of tailed off since then. Toby Pink isn't going to win you a flag, and Griffin Logue looks completely lost in that defensive line. And as much as we've talked about progression, they just don't have any sort of team defense to restrict these sort of easy entries where these, you could say, average key players aren't able to deal with the pace at the entries or the easiness of the entries that other teams get. And I just don't know if... I know they have talent all over, and we keep saying they have talent. We keep saying they're going to come good. Except, just looking at that defense, if they aren't able to protect that defense, they're not going to go anywhere. I think they're miles off where they should be this season with the amount of years in the rebuild and the amount that we talk about them. If they can't finish this season strong and go into the next season really kicking on, I'm not sure where they actually go, because for a team with this much quality to concede over 100 points every single game, every single week, isn't going to get you anywhere. They're miles off the team above them. So they're all they shouldn't be in the bracket with West Coast and Richmond. They should be in the next one. The mid-table teams.
But they're also not with St Kilda and Melbourne.
No, exactly. There's a gap there, and they should be next year fighting for the top 8. You'd think they should have been with that 9th to 13th sort of range this year. They're not, so maybe that's next year. It just feels like we keep expecting things from North Melbourne. We're not seeing anything, and I'm worried that we're never going to see that with this team. Yeah.
They seem to be doing a great job. Whoever's in charge of putting talent together seems to be doing a great job, and they seem to accumulate more and more, and they keep finding players that seem to all be playing well, but then you put it together as a team, and it seems to just not work. It's very interesting as a neutral, because you sort of want to see this team succeed, having failed so consistently for quite a few years now. But yeah, I'm just as concerned as you are.
Yeah, we're going to move to the next segment in the footy pyramid. Straight into the pyramid, we have one out, Max Gawn. Maybe it's probably just the legs and the age catching up with him. He can't put this team on his back every week. He went through a serious run of form at the start of the season, charging towards a potential All-Australian team, except you think he's a bit off that now, and he's almost falling out of contention if he hasn't already. Means coming into the pyramid, we have one new name. He's never been in the pyramid before. It's Nsai Wanganeen Milera, putting up serious numbers in the past few weeks. I feel like it used to be he might go 2 weeks on, 1 week off, but it feels like he's the main man at St Kilda now. They're trusting him. They always want to find him with the ball, and he's delivering. In the fourth pyramid, in the fifth tier of the pyramid, everything else stays the same. Dawson, Holmes, McCluggage, and Tristan Sherry, who also has fallen back on a little bit of form. Into the fourth tier, Brodie Grundy's going to move up again after coming into the pyramid last week. had an awesome performance again today against the 2 ruckmen. Did a great job against Luke Jackson. Did a great job against Sean Darcy. His ability to get involved as well, but I think he had 20 touches today, which he's almost like a ruckman that likes to bully other ruckmen, but he can still do it on the ground and get involved in the play. He was really close to there was one, I think it's the first or second quarter, where he took a mark and played on straight away. Yeah. Ruckmen don't do that.
In a big contest.
In a massive contest, he got up the front, got good position, took the mark, played on.
Yeah, and he dominates Jackson and Darcy one after the other, and he just takes the ball out of the ruck and then finds a hand pass 15 metres out to the space, straight to Warner, straight to Goulden, straight to McInerney. Just on Grundy. If this pyramid was who would you want first pick in your team for tomorrow, Grundy would be top of this pyramid with the form he's in.
Yeah, he'd be right up there. And I think it's a really interesting conversation with All Australian if he continues this form, continuing to the back end of the year. Tristan Sherry looked like a shoe-in with Max Gawn potentially, but they've both tailed off in form. Luke Jackson's obviously coming. He's also in the 4th tier. But the way Grundy's played the last 5 or 6 weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear in the media, when the people start doing their predicted All-Australians, if Grundy's name does start to pop up.
I think so.
And I can't see a reason why I wouldn't with the way he's playing. Joining him in the 4th tier is Sam Darcy. And Bailey Smith's going to move down again. He didn't play the bye, was a late out again this week. I think it's the 3rd time this season or something that he's been a late out. But you can't keep maintaining your spot if you're not playing games. And like I said, Luke Jackson is also in the 4th tier. Into the 3rd tier, Noah Anderson's going to hold his spot. Had another ridiculous performance. I think it was 2 goals and 30. Heaney's going to move down a tier, and Jeremy Cameron's going to move up. Didn't have his best kicking day, but he's comfortably the best forward in this league, and he could have been here a few weeks ago. Moving into the 2nd tier, Ed Richards is going to hold his spot, and Nick Dacos is going to move up into the 2nd tier. I mean, to be like we said before, all that talk before the game, stand up. 3 Brownlow votes comfortably, and he's doing it week in, week out again. Yeah. And Bont is going to stay on top of the pyramid.
Hasn't been mentioned, but 2 goals, 25, 10 tackles. Just how do you do?
I think it was either his first game in his career or his first game in a very long time. He didn't have a clearance, which was a bit which was a bit weird. And doesn't matter. He had a good game. He deserves to stay on top of the pyramid. He's going to be huge if Bulldogs can make finals, or especially if they make top 4.
Yeah, with the no clearance thing, the part of that was just the role that they played him in. They knew that they were against North Melbourne. They didn't need to be risking putting Bontempelli in a lot of contests. They gave all those other guys that are hungry for that midfield time. They gave him a run, played Bont on the outside and in the forward line.
Yeah,
he was
there's zero worry about Bont. No one's questioning his ability to get a clearance because he had one game with. No one cares. We'll move straight into the power rankings.
Look, with the power rankings this week, anyone who watched a lot of footy this week knows that it was the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer. It was the top 9 against the bottom 9. No intermixing there. The only upset where a bottom 9 team won was Sydney.
I'm not even... Sydney were heavy favourites in the betting odds today.
Yeah.
I know.
So it was 9 favourites, 1 out of 9.
Yes.
Yeah. So the only change that happens is that Fremantle will move down 3 spots to number 9, and that's how far you're going to move down. I think if Brisbane lost, they might have moved down 6 or 7 spots just because everyone else there, Adelaide, GWS, Hawthorn, Bulldogs, Gold Coast, they are all charging. Freo won 6 in a row before today, so even the team that's faltered is in fantastic form. So we've got a really compelling race for finals, as we've talked about, and now we sort of see, I'd argue that there are 7 teams completely out of contention. Port Adelaide sort of have a chance, and Sydney need everything to go right.
Yeah, and you just feel bad for the guy that bets $100 on every underdog in the AFL game match week. Let us know what you think of the new segment, and we'll see you all in the next one.